Hello you beautiful misfits, my name is Matt and this is Pixel Burn, where I take a snarky look at some of the more important, interesting or irritating things to have happened in recent gaming news. For the 100th time. Sorry I didn't have anything more grandiose to mark the occasion with, but then I haven't quite reached Logan Paul levels of YouTube dosh yet. We begin this episode with that old chestnut, paid in-game loot boxes, a topic guaranteed to bring either unconditional agreement or accusations of Trotskyism to any YouTuber who condemns them. Between you and me, I'm more of a neo-Gramscianist myself. The reason they're in the news yet again has to do with the Kingdom of Belgium, who on Tuesday the 11th reportedly launched a criminal investigation into EA for refusing to modify FIFA Ultimate Team card packs loot boxes to bring them into compliance with the country's gambling laws. Something EA has stubbornly refused to do because FIFA Ultimate Team packs made them $800 million last year. Now before I get deeper into this story, there's one little misconception currently doing the rounds on the old interwebs that I'd like to clear up. Loot boxes are not banned in Belgium. But Matt, this headline here says they've banned them and Andrew Wilson is going to be guillotined outside the Rubenshuis in Antwerp and no, that is bollocks. Belgium didn't ban loot boxes. The Netherlands did. Kind of. Belgium, of course, is where you eat delicious chocolates with Hercule Poirot in a relaxing spa, whereas the Netherlands is where you lie in a tulip field beside a windmill and read the Diary of Anne Frank. Amongst numerous other differences. Anyhow, under the law of the Netherlands, a loot box is only considered gambling if its contents can be traded outside of the game for real money. So of course CSGO loot boxes were deemed to be gambling, under this particular law at least, because you could sell weapon skins for cash. Or gamble them on unscrupulous third-party sites. At least until Valve blocked Dutch CSGO and Dota 2 players from even opening loot boxes at all, thereby magically making them legal again. Valve then changed Dota 2 loot boxes so you now see exactly what you'll get out of one before you buy it, but only if you're Dutch. Overwatch loot boxes meanwhile were not considered gambling under Dutch law because all the digital tat you get from them is confined entirely within the game. Belgium meanwhile, specifically the Belgian Gaming Commission and Ministry of Justice, deemed all loot boxes purchasable with real money to be gambling. Doesn't matter if it's in CSGO, Dota 2, Overwatch, Rocket League or Puzzle & Dragons. If a loot box can be purchased directly with real money or indirectly by converting said money into magic in-game space bucks first, under Belgian law it's still considered a gamble. And gambling in Belgium is not the least bit illegal whatsoever. As long as all your necessary licenses are in place. So no, purchasable loot boxes are not banned in Belgium. They're just now governed by pre-existing legislation that also covers things like scratch cards or lotteries. So if you're a publisher that wants to sell loot boxes in your game in Belgium, you need to qualify for a gaming license and pay a fee to the Belgian Gaming Commission. Additionally, since loot boxes are by their nature virtual and online, any games containing them would also come under online gambling regulations, meaning you as a hypothetical Belgian citizen have to be 21 or over to participate in them, and any games that include them would have to be labelled as adults only. Other publishers like Activision Blizzard and 2K have already responded to the Netherlands and Belgium's decisions by disabling real money loot box purchases for residents of those countries in their games. If you're a Dutch or Belgian Overwatch player however, then you still get a loot box every time you level up. Similarly, in NBA 2K, you can still purchase My Team packs, the game's equivalent of loot boxes, with in-game currency accumulated through regular play. You just can't buy them directly. 2K have also disabled the in-game auction house for Dutch and Belgian players, ostensibly to comply with Dutch laws about transferring loot box contents and, presumably, to play it extra safe in Belgium. Personally, I have no problems with in-game auction houses that trade entirely in virtual goods and in-game currency, if there's no real money component to it. It's how I bought my first horse in WoW. EA, on the other hand, have kept on selling their FIFA Ultimate Team loot boxes like nothing had changed, in violation of Belgian law. Which is ultimately the crux of the matter in this little spat between EA and Belgium. Belgium considers FIFA Ultimate Team card packs to be a form of gambling and thus require EA to procure a gaming license. EA meanwhile consider their card packs to be just that, card packs, like with Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. A defence regularly and eagerly parroted by the corporate astroturfers, sock puppet accounts and craven bootlickers that defend loot boxes unconditionally. That is when they're not labelling anyone opposed to them as just as bad as Jack Thompson. like fucking idiots, because a revenue model is not a protected form of artistic expression. Do people call Richard Branson a Picasso of finance? No. In fact, quite a few of us Brits call him a see you next Tuesday. But I digress. You can support creative freedom in video games and also still be against shitty, exploitative and frankly fucking lazy loot box practices that make horse armour seem almost completely inoffensive by comparison. Plus, Peter Nessens of the Belgian Gaming Commission already has a counterpoint lined up for that particular argument, which he expressed as follows in an interview with gamesindustry.biz. It might be considered gambling, but in our legislation there is an exception for it. So Pokemon cards, if they are going to introduce a Wheel of Fortune, roulette or a blackjack game in order to determine the contents, it will also be problematic and we will examine it as well. But in our legislation, card or party games are exempt from gambling legislation. If Pokemon cards were to introduce the gambling element to their game, it would be very problematic as well. Not to mention of course that tearing open a pack of Pokemon cards doesn't trigger a light show and musical fanfare to celebrate that fact. The comparison gets even wonkier when you consider Pokemon, Magic and other collectible card game booster packs have clear rules governing their contents. For example, with a regular booster pack of Pokemon cards, you are always guaranteed at least 3 uncommon cards and 1 rare card. What that rare card might be? I don't know. Mewtwo? I don't play Pokemon. Conversely, there are no such guarantees governing video game loot boxes, and in fact, publishers will go to some absurd lengths to obfuscate your odds of getting certain items. When China last year instituted a law requiring games to disclose the drop rates for items distributed through randomised systems, Activision Blizzard initially complied and disclosed the drop rates for Overwatch loot boxes. For a brief while anyway. They then changed them from being directly purchasable to a freebie given away whenever you bought in-game currency, thus absolving them of the letter of the law requirement to disclose the odds of getting that sweet skin you've been after. This legal investigation by the Belgian authorities came hot on the heels of rumours EA themselves were amping up to take the matter through the Belgian courts, and that's probably where this particular incident will be decided if neither side backs down. Although even if EA do take it to court and win, that's not to say the Belgian government can't later implement new laws specifically tailored to loot boxes.
That's not in the rules.
Well then, Hastings, the rules are wrong.
And this could have wider reaching consequences, because although Belgium is not exactly a huge gaming market, they're above Singapore and Norway, but a fair way behind India and Brazil, let alone China and the USA, they are a member of the EU, a significant and influential trading bloc. And another reason, besides $800 million per annum, that EA might try to strangle this particular legal hurdle in its metaphorical crib, because it could result in a knock-on effect that spreads to other EU countries like Finland. Ah, Finland. So near to Russia. So far from Japan. According to this article in the NEET section of the Helsingin Sanomat, apologies to all my Finnish viewers for mangling your language there, police in the southwest of the country have launched an inquiry into an as yet unnamed game with loot boxes in it on behalf of the Finland Lottery Authority.
I'm afraid that's all we know, gentlemen.
Now it could be an EA game, but then it might not be. We don't as yet know because the situation is still developing. Although if the publisher behind this unnamed game decide to go the same route EA are reportedly considering in Belgium, then, well, they wouldn't be the first to underestimate the Finns. Long story short, we could very well be seeing the beginning of the end for in-game loot boxes in their current form. Activision Blizzard and 2K both complied with the decisions of the Netherlands and Belgium after some grumbling. Meanwhile, back in July, Warner Bros. Removed loot boxes from Shadow of War without any government pressure, while Turn 10 announced they'll be removing them from Forza Motorsport 7 by the time winter rolls around. And literally while I was editing this video, 15 European gambling regulators and one American state-level one announced a collaborative effort to address the risks created by the blurring of lines between gaming and gambling, and ensure that features within games, such as loot boxes, do not constitute gambling under national laws. So publishers who persist in including loot boxes may soon find themselves having to slap an adults only label on their titles and pay a gambling tax in EU regions, by which point it'll probably be cheaper to just not include loot box mechanics at all, or go in the Fortnite route and letting players purchase whatever in-game knickknacks they want a la carte instead, without the random element of loot boxes. And they'll have EA to thank for it. Now sure, EA weren't the first to implement loot boxes, and they certainly weren't the first to refine the process into the money sink it's become today. It was, however, their overreaching tomfoolery with Star Wars Battlefront 2 that brought real money loot boxes to wider public and government attention in the first place. You reap what you sow. Okay, that topic went on a bit longer than I expected it to. Let's see if we can squeeze in a few other news topics before we go, eh? Like the recent news via entertainment industry trade magazine Variety that former Xbox 360 exclusive Alan Wake is being adapted for television. Or so that's the plan. Peter Calloway of Cloak and Dagger and Legion has signed on as showrunner and writer, while original game writer Sam, face of Max Payne Lake of Finland, based developer Remedy, is on board as executive producer. The show hasn't actually been shopped around to networks and studios yet, however, and that reportedly won't be happening until October. So don't get too excited, it's nowhere near being a done deal yet. Although LA-based film and TV production company Contradiction Films, which brought us the web series Mortal Kombat Legacy back in 2011, are also on board, and co-owner Thomas Harland claims he's already seen interest in the project from a number of studios. So the outlook is currently about as rosy for Alan Wake the series as it is for any new TV show. Certainly rosier than the chances of a direct, playable video game sequel to the original Alan Wake. Speaking to Variety, Sam Lake crushed the hopes and dreams of Alan Wake fans with the following statement. At the moment, there is no news of any further Alan Wake games. As before, we're exploring these possibilities and hoping to make it happen when the time is right. Although we did have this to add about the TV show. We'll be expanding the lore of this crazy and dark universe and diving deeper into certain aspects of it than the game ever did. Not only that, but through the years, we've worked on multiple game concepts and stories for Alan Wake's world that have never seen the light of day. All this material will function as potential source material for the show. So fans itching for a sequel all these years will sort of get their wish granted, just not in a format they prefer. Although it's not too radically different really, seeing as Alan Wake the game was already a TV show in a lot of ways, albeit a playable one. It was a predominantly linear experience built heavily around an episodic structure, right down to the previously on recap at the beginning of every level, not to mention all the influences it took from TV shows like Twilight Zone and Twin Peaks. In fact, one of the reasons I love the game so much, and replay it when I get the time to, is that it's basically an interactive love letter to the American horror tradition, which in video game form was charming and awesome, especially for a horror fan like myself. As a TV show, however, I can maybe see some critics ripping into it a bit for being a touch too derivative. But what do I know, I just watch TV occasionally and make videos on YouTube. This budding video game to TV adaptation might actually wind up turning out to be pretty good, like the Castlevania one on Netflix, season 2 of which airs this October. Finally, Hollow Knight creators Team Cherry this week announced and released a trailer for Hollow Knight Voidheart Edition, a complete version of the game with all current DLC coming to Xbox One and PlayStation 4 on September 25th. So to anyone in the past who responded to my gushing over this wonderful game, one of my top games of 2017 no less, with comments like, "Oh Matt, I'd love to play it, I really would, but I don't own a PC or a Nintendo Switch, so I can't." Well, don't have any excuses now, do you? Seriously, play Hollow Knight, it's great. That's all for this centenary episode of Pixel Burn. If you liked it, then please do let me know by clicking the requisite buttons down below, like, share, subscribe, etc. And let your friends, your family, your dog and Alan Wake know as well. At the very least, I hope you found it tolerable. If you found it significantly more than tolerable, you might consider joining some of the officially lovely misfits that help support the channel on Patreon. Lovely misfits like Ben Paleo, Caezus and E the Weasel here. Your contribution is not only tremendously appreciated, it also helps the show, so thank you. Meanwhile, till next time, as always, you can go now.